good afternoon, everyone. Kia ora. Thank you so much for coming along to Surviving the Generative AI Revolution, Embracing Your Humanity in the Era of Copilot. So we're going to be doing something a little different today. I'll be talking about some things that I'm quite passionate about, but I'm really excited to have the opportunity to share with you all today. It is a dark and very cold morning here in Auckland. I trust you are having glorious summer weather in the Northern Hemisphere. And a happy 4th of July to any Americans who might be on the call today. I've lived in New Zealand for 17 years now. I'm pretty much the worst American ever. I'm not even sure what day the 4th of July is on, but yeah. Anyways, all seriousness aside, let's crack into it. So I'd like you to ponder. There we go. I'd like you to ponder this as we go through the content today. So, why have artists proved so difficult to get rid of, despite technology's best efforts? And technology really has tried to get rid of the artists. We invented the photograph, and yet we still have painters and visual artists. We invented animation and video, and yet we still have actors in theater. The same for synthesizers and recorded music, and yet musicians are still with us. Same for mass production. It hasn't eliminated the craftspeople. And so keep in the back of your mind this thought of what will happen in this age of AI to the artists. As Sarah said, I'm Nathan Rose. I'm a lead consultant at Capgemini here in beautiful and very cold Auckland, New Zealand. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in business applications. And shout out and congrats to any of the newly minted MVPs who are on the call today. And cross your fingers and toes because we're all still waiting to find out if we renewed. Supposed to be next week. I'm kind of the Power FX guy, but we're not going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about some other stuff that I'm really passionate about AI, music, art, and how we respond to this world of AI. So a quick overview of our time together today. So we'll take a look at this wave of generative AI that's crashing on our shore. We'll then explore how generative AI works, and we'll do a bit of a unique demo that may put me to shame forever, but I'm going to enter the danger and we're going to do it. Once we understand how Gen AI works, we'll look at who wins in this world of generative AI and copilots, and then we'll wrap up with how to get there and some Q&A. Now, I love for these sessions to be as interactive as possible, so if at any point in time you have a question or a comment, something you don't understand or something you don't agree with, feel free to come off mute and we can talk about it. Alternatively, if you'd prefer to pop your message in the chat, I don't have ready access to it while I'm presenting, but Sarah, if you don't mind just monitoring it, and if there's something there that we need to talk about, just come off mute and we can address it as it comes up.
Q&A rather than the chat. The chat doesn't show for everybody.
Okay, yep, Q&A.
Just FYI.
Cool, thanks. All right. One more thing before we begin. So there are two types of AI. There's narrow and general. Narrow AI is the AI that we have today. It's created for a dedicated purpose. Now, this might feel a little controversial because things like ChatGPT and Copilots do lots of things, but the reality is they really only have one job to do. They answer questions. They can do it on lots of different subjects, but that's pretty much what they do. So that's narrow AI. That's what we have today. General AI is human level cognition. So think Skynet from the Terminator movies if you're over the age of 30. This is not known to exist at this time. So depending on the AI researchers you give credence to, this is anywhere from years to decades away, if it's even possible at all. So the single biggest impediment to creating a general AI is the fact that medical and science people can't define consciousness. It's one of those sticky challenges because you and I know that we're conscious. In this moment, we know that we're sharing this presentation and this experience together, but there's no actual way to define this in any way that would let you build it. And as all of us know from delivery land and the Power Platform, if you can't define the requirements, we can't build the thing. So any references to AI, generative AI today are to narrow AI, not general AI. All right, cool. I think we are ready to kick off. So, is it over for us? Wow. I was hoping this would be a little bit more positive. It's kind of a little off brand for you, Nathan, but we need to understand the state of the world today, how we got here, because once we understand how we got here, then we can start to unpack AI and how it works. So, how many of you know who this man is? He simultaneously ruined work and gave us the consumer abundance that we have today. This is Frederick Taylor. Frederick Taylor is most famous for the invention of what we know as modern management theory. He was a bit of a math freak, and his whole ethos was break work down into the smallest tasks possible. He's basically the worst scrum master ever. And systematize, right? It's all about the system, the system, the system. And that was Frederick Taylor. Now, one of his ideas, this was a new idea at the time, was that workers should conform to the system and not the other way around. Or as Chris Huntingford likes to say, FIFO, fit in or F off. And that is, so if you've ever felt like, gosh, my employer just doesn't get me, thank Frederick Taylor, because he's the man who put this idea out there in the world that we should conform to the system and not the other way around. Did I mention it's all about the system? The system. Now, Taylor's ideas have persisted to the present day. Some of you may be familiar with this book called The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. He basically took Taylor's ideas and passed them off as his own and expanded on them. This idea that documentation is an affirmation of order. Everything can be broken down into small steps, documented, systematized, and automated. This is how McDonald's works. This is why McDonald's can take any teenager off the street and within a couple of hours teach them to make your Big Mac. So this is the world we live in today. We actually need to travel back in time a little further to understand how we got to this moment in time. So this is a brief history of how we got here. We've had three main movements in the world of work over the past few hundred years. Starting in the 1760s with the Industrial Revolution, we went from the farm to the factory, then from the factory to the office, and now we're in the process of this move from the office to the data center. So back in the 1760s, the Industrial Revolution kicked off, and the means of production were centralized under one roof. We got things like assembly lines and interchangeable parts. Production of goods became efficient. Then in 1776, a date which is a little bit ironic given that it's the 4th of July and most of you are in the UK, Adam Smith, who was a Scottish economist, wrote The Wealth of Nations. This book is widely regarded as the Bible of the Industrial Revolution. If you've never read it, that's okay. It's nothing like a good economics textbook to put you to sleep. But the TLDR of The Wealth of Nations was that companies and countries are better off specializing in the things they do well and trading for everything else. Prior to Smith's ideas taking hold, companies and countries pretty much produced everything they needed in-house. And then Smith said, why don't you specialize? And if you say, gosh, that sounds a lot like the world we live in today, you'd be exactly right. That's why here in New Zealand, we produce beef and lamb and dairy for you to go buy at your local Tesco's and Sainsbury's, and we import iPhones. That's why you and I trade our time as technology professionals and pay people to fix our houses and cars. We specialize. Fast forward another 100 years, and we're in the factory, but we've discovered that we don't need people to run machines. We can use steam and coal and recycled dinosaurs. And so the age of mechanization starts, and this next migration from the factory to the office takes place. Because while we didn't need as many people on the factory floor to power these machines, and the term manpower, because it was traditionally men who did a lot of this stuff, but we needed clerical staff, administrative and managerial staff to run these large organizations. And so knowledge work was born. This is the world you and I live in today. Fast forward another few years in time, and we're in the 1950s, and the age of automation begins. We start to bring computers into the workplace, and they start to do some of the cognitive tasks that have been done by some of these administrators and clerical staff. Fun fact, the term computer used to be a job description. It was typically a young woman whose job it was to run the numbers. And then IBM showed up and computers became a thing, not a person. And so this was the age of automation. Now, if you're over the age of probably 40, you've seen this in your own career because we no longer have massive secretarial or clerical staffs in our organizations. The work that they traditionally did is now done by tools like Microsoft 365 to manage our correspondence and diaries and all of that. So that was the age of automation. And now in the 2020s, we're in the middle of this move from the office to the data center. Higher level cognitive tasks that have traditionally been done by more highly educated, highly paid individuals are starting to be offloaded to AI, which is running in the data center. And as a result, this has been our response to AI over the last few years. So we pretty much ignored it when the natural language processors and the intelligent agents came about. We were amused by Alexa. We pretty much hated Siri. And then ChatGPT hit the scenes and we lost our collective minds. There have been calls for moratoriums on AI research. There have been calls for it to be banned outright. There have been calls for government regulation. And it's understandable, right? There's a profound sense of doom hanging over people because we are tipped to lose anywhere from millions to hundreds of millions of jobs worldwide, thanks to technologies like AI, particularly generative AI. And the question looms, if AI does my job, what does that mean for me? Now, traditionally, as technology professionals, we've been immune from this because we've been the one implementing or inflicting, depending on how you look at it, these technologies on the organizations we work with. However, as we've all seen in many of the recent Copilot demos from Microsoft, Copilots can do the stuff that you and I do, that can create tables in Dataverse, can create a Power App, can create a Cloudflow and Power Automate. These are tasks that up until now have been done by reasonably well-educated, highly skilled, highly paid consultants. And so the question looms, what does this mean for you and me? How do we respond to this world of AI? But before we completely freak out, we actually need to pull the curtain back and understand what's going on behind the scenes in these AI tools. Because once we understand what's going on, then we can start to respond to it. So with that said, here is my grossly oversimplified diagram for how generative AI tools work. So what happens? Generally, you start with asking it a question. This is known as a prompt. Once you've entered your prompt, the large language model goes away and it learns all about your prompt based on the data it has access to. So in the case of ChatGPT, that's the entirety of the internet. If you're using a custom Copilot behind your company's firewall, that could just be the data that you've given it access to. But it goes and learns all about your prompt based on the data it can access, and it then synthesizes an answer for you. Now, I am glossing over a lot of complexity here, and my intention is not to dismiss the tremendous amount of technical know-how and creativity that went into creating these tools, but I'm trying to just make it accessible. So there is a lot of clever math and predictive modeling that goes into bringing all this data back together and putting it into a coherent answer. And once it's done that, it responds to you. So that's basically what's happening behind the scenes at a very high level. But I feel like we need to have a specific example because this is a little too high level. So what I did was I took ChatGPT to the Grammys and I asked it to write me a pop song. And you can see that it did that. I said, write me a pop song. I did say please, and I asked it to include the chords. And as you can see here, it's done that. We've got a verse and a chorus, and it's cut off in the screenshot, but another verse. We have lyrics that are reasonably coherent for a pop song, and we have chords. How on earth did it do that? And this is where we become quite disconcerted and unsettled, right? Because anyone who's ever seen a VH1 documentary knows that great music doesn't take seconds. It requires collaboration of a number of skilled individuals. You need composers to create the melodies and the harmonies, lyricists who can express the human condition in poetry set to that melody and harmony. You need performers, musicians, singers who can bring it to life, and producers who can polish it and create that finished product that we hear on Spotify. And of course, in the world of popular music, you need copious amounts of drama and illicit substances as well to bring these things to life. And yet, ChatGPT did this in a matter of seconds. How on earth did it do that? Okay, I'm ready to embarrass myself. So, how did it do that? Well, firstly, how many of you are familiar with the four chords that rule the world? Come over here to my piano. They are C, G, A minor, and F. I assume everybody can hear that? Cool. C, G, A minor, and F. Now that chord progression should sound familiar to you because you've heard it thousands of times over the course of your life. Almost every song you've ever loved uses those four chords. You probably heard it on your way into work this morning. If I'm really boring, you might be listening to this right now. But this has been used in thousands of songs across many, many genres, multiple eras, and multiple artists. And so let me go ahead and really embarrass myself, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So starting with the Beatles, I find myself in times of trouble, when comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. All right, it's a little early for hitting those high notes, but we'll go back and forth across the Atlantic. So little Leonard Cohen. Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't get music, do you? Iggy Pop. I'm getting a little bit of a delay, so it's throwing me off. We'll come back across the Atlantic to Sarah's hometown of Manchester and do a little Oasis. Back across the Atlantic to the U.S. and a little Mark Cohn. Or some Elton John. Can you feel the love tonight? So I think I've made the point that, oh, there is one more that I was going to do for everybody because it is the 4th of July. Can anyone guess which side of the Atlantic that's from? If you said the U.S., you'd actually be wrong. The tune for the Star-Spangled Banner was a famous drinking song in English pubs back in the 1700s, which I think is absolutely awesome. But we have used these four chords, C, G, A minor, and F, to butcher many songs from many different artists across many different genres. And so that is effectively how ChatGPT knew to give us a pop song with those four chords, because they're pretty much used in everything. All right, but what about the structure of the song? How did it know to do that? So there is a famous YouTube video by an Australian comedy trio called The Axis of Awesome. They do a much better job than I do of illustrating this point. So if you haven't seen it, it is highly entertaining. But what about the structure? How did it know to give us a verse, a chorus, a verse, a bridge, and a chorus? Well, it turns out that pretty much every song ever follows the same structure. They all go verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. There's some exceptions. Sometimes the Beatles started with the chorus, but they pretty much all follow that structure, and they're pretty much all in 4/4 time. So I don't know. I mean, are we amazed that ChatGPT could figure that out? I mean, a group of Australians could figure out the chords, and Wikipedia knew the structure. So I think there's some more detail that we need to get into. But, oh, hey, Simon. Really? Oh, come on, man. I thought it was good, but Yeah, okay. I'll stick to my day job, but I do enjoy the piano. It's a hobby. But I feel like there's a bit of I guess the bit that really freaks us out about Gen AI doing creative things and writing songs is the content, right? Because the lyrics are where we really express that human condition and communicate at a soul level. So this is my incredibly unscientific analysis of the content of every pop song ever. Now we can debate the categories and the space that you would allot to them, but I think we can pretty much all agree that most music is about love and relationships, affairs of the heart, right? There's other topics, parties, or um, inspiration or nostalgia, but for the most part, they're about love and relationships. And so that's how the large language model was able to give us lyrics. It basically said, most songs are about affairs of the heart. I will give you lyrics related to that. So let's bring this all back together in our grossly oversimplified diagram. So we gave it a prompt. We said, write me a pop song. It went away and it learned all about it. The structure, verse, bridge, chorus, chord progression, C, G, A minor, and F, and the content, love and relationships. It then composed that song based on the average values that it found and responded to us with a song based on those average values. And the reason that the large language model could do that is because of Moore's law. This idea that every 2 years the power of computer chips doubles and the price halves. That's why we have a supercomputer in our pocket, and that's why ChatGPT can pretend to be Lady Gaga. In some ways, this reminds me of a quote from a Greek mathematician by the name of Archimedes. He once said, give me a long enough lever and I will move the world. Or in the case of generative AI, give me enough computing power and I too can become Lady Gaga. Or can it? Wait a minute here. It's not really creating, is it? It's just averaging. It gave us the average of every pop song ever written. It didn't give us the new thing. It just went and looked at everything that's been done before and gave us kind of an average value. Kind of sounds like the creative process at Disney right now, right? If you've suffered through the last few Star Wars or Marvel movies, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They basically took the same thing that's been done before and rehashed it and gave it to you in a slightly different version. And that's basically what generative AI is doing. So if you're wondering why Hollywood went on strike over AI a few years ago, now you know exactly why. Because if you're a highly paid studio professional whose job is to basically rehash the same thing that's done before, then yeah, you'd be really worried about technology like this because it's going to take away a very good thing you've got going. All right, so we've established that generative AI is not creating. So now we need to turn our attention to who wins in this world of generative AI. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen some version of this LinkedIn post over the last couple of years. It's usually put out by some thoughtfluencer trying to pass themselves off as an AI expert, kind of like I'm doing now. Moving on. But the idea is that AI won't replace your job, but a person using AI will. Well, they're half right. Your job will be replaced by a person and they will use AI, but there's something critical that these posts are glossing over. And so let's explore what that is. How many of you are familiar with Seth Godin? It's okay if you're not. Seth is a big deal in the world of marketing, and most of us live in the world of the Power Platform. But Seth is the godfather of modern marketing. He has written many books. He has spoken all over the world. He's a thought leader and has some just absolutely brilliant ideas about the world we live in today. Highly recommend his books. But about 15 years ago, Seth wrote a book called Linchpin. And the big idea of the book Linchpin is how do you become indispensable at work? Now, what's interesting about this book is despite the fact that it's 15 years old, it's probably more relevant today in this world of AI than it was back when it was written. I'll show you what I mean. So this is a quote from Linchpin. It's one of my favorite quotes from the book. In the linchpin economy, the winners are the artists who give gifts. Giving a gift makes you indispensable. Inventing a gift, creating art is what the market seeks out. And the givers are the ones who earn our respect and attention. Now, you might be saying, that's great, Nathan, but I work with the Power Platform. We're not artists here. I don't paint. As we've just seen, you clearly can't sing, and Simon agrees with me. So what on earth are you talking about? Well, firstly, we need to explore, what is art? Well, art is anything that is creative, passionate, and personal. It's a personal gift that changes the recipient, and it's defined by intentionality. It's something that exists for its own sake. This means, by this definition, that art transcends the traditional things we've thought of as art, painting and music and literature and whatnot. This can be literally anything you do. Think about the time you went out for a meal with friends and family to celebrate a special occasion, and the waitstaff just performed their duties with flair. Seemed like they were just in your head in the way they seemed to know exactly what you wanted and when you wanted it, and the way they explained the menu and paired wines with the food and provided attentive yet unobtrusive service. That's art. And so that means you and I are capable of creating art and being artists. This painting on the slide, School of Athens by Raphael, is a fresco on one of the walls of the Vatican. And it provides no structural support, no insulation, no light, no warmth. It simply exists because Raphael put it there. I mean, okay, he was paid a lot of money by the Vatican to do it, but he infused himself into this painting and created a thing of beauty that inspires us, that moves us. In fact, he's put so much of himself in it that it's rumored that this individual here, I think it's this one, is a self-portrait of Raphael. But it simply exists to be a thing of beauty, to inspire us and to move us. And so that is what art is. So, okay, so many questions, Nathan. Who is an artist? Well, artists are many different things. I mean, obviously they're creative, they're they're visionaries, they're people who possess taste and discernment, they're passionate, they push the boundaries, they're nonconformists. The one that I think is most important to you and me is this one, that they work without a map. They don't they don't live in the world of Fred Taylor and the E-myth, the system, the system, the system. They're out there creating their own map, exploring new territory. Now, this scares us because we all know stories of someone who tried this and it didn't work out so well for them. I have ancestors in the United States, I'm sure, who didn't make it to California and probably met a gruesome end along the way. And so this idea of working without a map scares us. But this is where the artist lives. And the person who thrives in this world of generative AI, where AI can follow the instructions, the great jobs are found on the other side of that, the person who works without the map. So I think we're starting to come to this idea that AI machines can't create art. But why? Why can't they do it? Because I think we'd agree that there is a difference between that perfectly baristed coffee from your neighborhood cafe versus the office Nespresso machine. Or that timeless song where the artist just bleeds through the lyrics and expresses the human condition versus last year's one-hit wonder that we've forgotten. Or your family's special recipe versus McDonald's, right? You don't go to McDonald's for a good burger. You go to McDonald's for a McDonald's burger because it's all about the system and you know exactly what you're getting. So why can't machines create art? Well, simply put, AI doesn't care. They can't create art because anything they do won't be passionate or personal. They don't care. It's all about the system, the system, the system. Anything they do is something that they've been programmed to do. The single biggest strength and weakness of AI is that it doesn't care. That's why AI can spot the nasties on your x-ray 2 years before a human radiologist can, because it doesn't get tired, it doesn't get bored, it doesn't get distracted. But by the same token, AI can't sit with you and explain your diagnosis to you in a human-to-human empathetic way. It can't do that. And so that is why AI can't create art. All right, so we've covered off how we got to the world we're in today, the people who win, the fact that I can't sing or play piano very well. But how do I become an artist? Because the person who wins in this world of generative AI is the artist. So how do I become a person who generates value in this world? Well, let me share a personal story. So 3 years ago, I bought this house. I'm currently seated here behind this sliding glass door. But anyone who's ever bought a house before knows that it is an incredibly stressful experience, right? You're parting with a large sum of money that you worked very hard for to save up over a long period of time. You are signing up for a financial commitment with a bank that is decades in duration, and you have absolutely no idea what's going on. You show up to the solicitor's office to sign papers. They speak to you in a language that sounds like English but clearly isn't, because you didn't understand a word they said. When you ask them to clarify, they get impatient with you. You feel awkward, and so you say, I'm getting a house right, and they just grunt, and you sign, and you leave, but you don't feel good about it, right? It's a terrible experience. But when you think about it, that solicitor is simply mechanically processing paperwork, right? Buyer and seller and bank and counsel, they're just mechanically processing paperwork. This is work that can and probably should have been done by some form of automation decades ago. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we fire all the lawyers. I mean, one could dream, but imagine, if you would, a world where the solicitor lets the AI do the boring stuff, that mechanical processing of paperwork between the bank and the seller and the buyer, and they focus their efforts on explaining the process to you, empathizing with you, making you feel seen and heard and understood. How much more might you pay for an experience like that? And that is what I'm talking about in this world of AI, where the automation can do the stuff that has traditionally been done by humans, but the humans can do the stuff that the AI cannot do and likely will never be able to do. So back to our world. Copilots can create an app. We've all seen them do that, but they can't craft an experience. They're not capable of that because they can't see the world through the intended user's eyes. They can't take a client on the change journey. And they can't do any of these things because they simply don't care. You and I care, at least we're capable of caring. And so that's the huge amount of leverage that we have in this world of generative AI. And that's what we need to start bringing to our jobs as the copilots start to take on the workload that we've traditionally done. So what does this mean for you and me? Some of you may be familiar with Sean Astrachan. He presented a VRT session a few weeks ago. He's a good mate of mine, fellow Baltimorean. He has a great video on YouTube about the difference between makers and solution architects. Highly recommend you check it out. But he basically talks about makers being an airline pilot, people who follow detailed sets of instructions and do exactly what they're supposed to do. It's all about the system, the system, the system. Now, I'm not saying this to be dismissive of airline pilots. I'm glad that they follow the rules because I like getting from A to B in one place. But the reality is, in this world of generative AI, if you are simply a maker when it comes to the Power Platform, following a detailed set of instructions, the reality is that copilots can increasingly do that type of work. However, solution architects, Sean describes as being getaway drivers, people who use their creativity and basically are told, get me from here to there, figure it out. And that's the skill set that's going to become increasingly necessary. People who can orchestrate copilots, people who can bring the full expression of their humanity to the job to thrive in this world of generative AI. Now, there's no easy answers to some of these questions, but these are the things that you want to be asking yourself as we move into this world where copilots are doing many of the tasks we've traditionally done. What's my unique art that I can share with the world? What's my zone of genius? What can I do that no one else can do? I'd encourage you to use tools like StrengthsFinder 2.0, things like that, to really explore where you thrive, the things that you do that no one else can do. And once you know that and understand that, ask yourself, how might I double down on my humanity to create art for my clients? Because that's where the victory is in this world of Gen AI. That's how you stand out. And then lastly, how does generative AI free me and give me capacity to create better art for my clients? Think back to buying the house. Think about a solicitor who combines their legal knowledge with the expression of their humanity to then provide a much better experience for people, for the buyer. And so think about how you can leverage these tools. I'll tell you another quick story. Some of you may be familiar with Grandmaster Flash. He is one of the fathers of hip hop. And what Grandmaster Flash is most famous for is creating these absolutely infectious DJing loops. If you've ever heard The Message on Spotify, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But what Grandmaster Flash did was he turned the technology, the records and the turntables into an instrument. That's what he did. And that is what you and I need to do in this world of generative AI, is take the AI and turn it into an instrument that we then use to create art. So as we wrap up, why have artists persisted despite the onslaught of technology? Well, there's three key things that artists have done to thrive over the years despite the best efforts of technology. Firstly, they don't perseverate on their greatest hits. They create, they move on. Secondly, they're unafraid to challenge convention. And then lastly, they leverage the threat. So they incorporate it into their work, just kind of like what I just said about Grandmaster Flash. It gives them greater reach and lets them create new things. So that brings us to the end of our time together. Thank you all so much for your time and your attention and putting up with my my poor music skills. But thank you very much, and I'm happy to take some questions.
Thanks, Nathan. I think most questions were relating to the piano and singing, how much everybody was enjoying it. So,
oh, cool! Thanks,
well
everybody.
Done.
Yeah.
I put a couple of links in for Sean in the Q&A, just in case anybody wanted to pick those up as well.
Cool!
He's
Thank
really
you.
entertaining presenter, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, Sean's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, love him. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I want to make a remark. Because in the beginning you said that Gen AI is decades away. Actually, you can check Jürgen Schmidhuber in Lugano. It's actually closer than you might think. And if I remember correctly, at Facebook, I think Mark Zuckerberg shut down a chatbot by himself because this thing got out of control. So you can check the research. Jürgen Schmidhuber is cool.
Okay. Cool.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say it was brilliant.
Thanks, Anna. Good to see you.
Yeah, I also chimed with it. I think it was very funny and brilliant. And the piano wasn't that bad. You know, you can smash some world hits with that.
Yeah. One can dream, right? Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. It was good.
It was really good. It was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Do you take requests, Nathan?
No, I know 4 chords, and that's about it. So, yeah.
But imagine
Hi,
Yeah.
Craig.
playing 4 a.m. already that tune. How will it be at 4 p.m.? So I guess, maybe you have much more talent as you believe.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a bit of a hobby of mine. I picked it up last year. So, yeah.
Craig, how you doing?
Not bad, just getting over the tail end of COVID. But question for you, Nathan. Did you
Sure.
try playing your AI-created song on your piano?
No, so I didn't, I haven't done that actually. Yeah, if we go back to, what are the chord progressions?
You need a vocalist. I think it needs a female vocalist. Probably volunteer Sarah for that.
Yeah.
That's because you haven't heard me sing, Craig. I actually had
Yeah.
a karaoke machine turned off on me once in
Wow.
Blackpool. Yeah, it was bad. I won't put you through
Oh.
that. No one will ever come to a VRT again.
But you can listen to Sarah's interview podcast on Sprint Zero. That was good.
Oh, did you listen to it?
I did.
Oh, it's
You
not
are-
normally
you
me
are
having
the-
to do the talking.
Mm.
Those guys are funny. They should put the videos up.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet, but it's on my list of stuff to get through this weekend. So,
Nice. Did anyone see that news about Apple and their patent to use their AirPods to like listen for to check for like a brain activity? And there's like some conspiracy theory that they just want to analyze like the thinking process and then plug it in AI. So, just to kind of throw in the context of your session. But yeah, that sounds a bit scary.
yeah, because there's so much cognitive stuff going on when you're scrolling Instagram. So,
Yeah.
usually you get to zone out, right? So,
Dopamine injection.
yeah. Yeah.
I think all it'll spot is just how sleepy we've all got just watching the same stuff.
Yeah.
Claire, hi, I didn't see you join.
Yeah, I was there near the beginning.
Great to see you.
I've got to come and support Nathan. He's one of our team.
Oh, good to meet you, Claire. Yeah, I see the Capgemini Clover behind you. So,
Are you giving this a try, Nathan? On the keyboard.
I'm sorry?
Are you trying this?
Do you want me to? Yeah,
this
it's
out?
basically it's the same chord progression: C, G, A minor, and F. So that's yeah, the base, and then the chorus shifts it up, and it goes F, D, A minor. Oh, sorry, no, it goes F, C, A minor, G. So you can arrange it lots of different ways. But yeah, that's the cool thing about these. Why you've heard these chords in so many songs, because you can arrange them lots of different ways. Switch them up, break them up. Yeah.
I saw this advert. I think it was on a YouTube. There is this like a piano guy that like sells the recipe for those 4 chords, and he demonstrates like pretty much what you show us.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of cool once you learn them. I mean, you can play just so many things. So yeah, it's I've thought about doing some YouTube videos on piano myself, just for giggles, just to teach people, from the because I'm like the least qualified person to do it, because I don't know as much. But I find with some of the YouTube videos, they assume that you know a lot of things, and it can be really frustrating. So. Yeah, but yeah, once you know the chords, it's pretty easy to play all kinds of things. So
Well, if there's no more questions, that just leaves me to say thank you very much. That was really enjoyable, like really entertaining. Yeah,
thank you all for
enjoyed
coming
that.
along, and yeah.
Oh, fab. Okay, well, thanks again, everyone, for joining today, especially Nathan. And yeah, appreciate it super early for you. So yeah, super,
That's a pleasure.
super thank you. And I hope to see you all again soon.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Nathan.
Bye.
Thanks, Nathan.
Bye.
Cheers up, bye.